I came to here my nurse see them, and they're all in between.
We have phones, we do have. I resemble that.
Change or whatever, right?
One minute warning. Testing. Can you hear me? The meeting will now come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for all of those who gave their life to this country.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Debbie, can we have a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Susan Muniac,
Here.
Ed Wayner, Ed, Jean Hare, Brenda Owens, Lemay Nyford,
Here.
Larry Burgess, Jennifer Smiley,
Here.
Beverly Hasty.
Here. Proof of notice of the meeting?
Yes, Beverly, as per your documents and Florida statute, notice was posted.
Thank you. Can we have the disposition of prior meetings minutes? Can I have a motion? Sue?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Art Committee.
Hi, Russ Rogers, 8224 Laurel Del Rio Drive. Monday the 17th, we met with 4 members. We had 13 requests and we approved 13 requests. But I have one question with one, number 1053 Tappan Zee Drive, I believe it is. They're removing a window and putting in a door, and we didn't see any indication that they had a county permit to do this. If you're gonna do a major construction of your house or structural change, I believe we need to have something, so I thought maybe John could have them add that in the letter to, it is said on the form that they have to do this, but nobody reads the form.
Okay.
As far as I know, you do not, it's not our responsibility to check for it or not, and it is on the form. And I believe, Debbie, do we put that on the letter that goes out? This does not supersede any county or,
I could add it to the letter.
okay, will that work for you, Russ?
I
Will
don't
you
know,
add it to the
bring it
letter?
up and let you decide what you want to do. So
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
that's it, everything was approved.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Thank you, sir.
Sue?
I'll move that we approve the 13 architectural review forms that were submitted and recommended for approval by the committee.
Jennifer? Okay. Is there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Do we need to make a motion to add, sorry. Do we need to make a motion to add the,
No.
the sentence? You'll just add, we can just add that? Okay.
Okay, we have a resignation from Jean Hare, who is our secretary on the board, due to health issues. I need a motion to accept his resignation. Go ahead, Brenda.
I move, can you hear me? I move we accept Jean's resignation.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, he's released from his duties. Next, we have to fill the vacancy. So,
I nominate Chris Dobrowski as she is to fill the vacancy.
Oh, I can't hear you.
I nominate Chris Dobrowski to fill the vacancy.
Do I have a second?
I nominate Jerry Beard.
Well,
He
Is
can't.
that a motion or?
I made the motion.
Okay, so now we'll have some, discussion. The reason being that Chris was the next person in line with the highest number of votes of the people who ran for the office, and I feel that's how we should go. Go ahead, Lynn.
That's not how it's been done in the past.
This is a new board. Has nothing to do with the past.
I think by doing that, we almost set a precedence, and it is supposed to be by approval of the board. And I hate to say this, but I had numerous people who came up and told me they voted for Chris. And I said, Chris Dombrowski, and they said, yeah, your friend. So I think there was a mix-up because there was no picture on that paper that was sent out, and I think that needs to be done in the future. That's mine.
Brenda?
I'm curious as to how it was done in the past.
They were appointed.
Go ahead, Sue.
It has been done both ways. It has been done where the next person in line has gotten it. It's also been done where the board decided differently. It's been done both ways in the past. I know I was on the board when once it was done with following and the other was done without. And being so close to when the election was, that, you know, these were people who came out who were willing to run.
Brenda?
So, do we, I don't, I'm new here, so I don't know, I know very few people. I am familiar with Jerry's work on the board, but, I don't have Chris's resume memorized. Is there a way we can review that?
Just for point of information, Bev, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Jerry cannot be appointed to the board. Our documents are very clear that if you have served 4 years in a row, you may not serve on the board without waiting 2 years. If he had only been on for 2 years and decided not to run, he could be on the board, but he cannot because and I can read it if you.
I would like to see that or have that checked out, because even if you were appointed now for this position,
I know it's only 11 months.
it will still be less than a year, so he would still not have served 5 years, he would still be within the 4 years.
It's the way it's written, I will.
Okay, well, I think
that
that needs to be, yeah,
It's right here.
clarified.
in the-
Okay, well, let's read it out so
I
other
will.
people can hear it
I
as
will
well.
read it. Vacancies on the board of directors are to be filled by the remaining directors for the balance of the unexpired term of the vacant position. For purposes of filling vacancies, any director who is appointed and serves a remaining unexpired term in excess of 12 months can be considered to serve a full term for purposes of section 4 above relating to the 2-year waiting period. When a board of directors is appointed to fill a vacancy for a period of less than 12 months, the board will not have served a full term for purposes of the waiting period for term limits in section 4 above of this article.
Would be less than 12 months.
No, wait, there's section 4 at the beginning of it. It says, after a director, this is section 4 right at the beginning, after a director has served 2 consecutive 2-year terms,
Madam President, can we
said
just
director
stop this whole
shall
thing?
remain off the board
Point of order.
for the next term, which is a period of 2 years.
Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
I couldn't feel good to be serving with some of you people up on the board, so don't even talk about it, so I'm out of it.
Okay, so now what? We have one person that's been put up. Are we allowed to put other people up? Do we have to vote, or how is this done? I don't want this done at this meeting. I don't want to replace someone at this meeting. I would like to think about this.
You have to open it to nominations.
It is right, if there's anyone else who has a nomination.
Can I nominate someone? I would like to nominate Donna Moser for the position.
We have a second?
We don't need, actually, you don't need seconds for a nomination.
It wasn't a motion, it was a nomination.
Right.
Can I also say that, why?
You can say why.
Okay. I think Donna has been in this community for quite a long time. She has followed what is going on. She's run for the board numerous times, and I think a lot of people, I don't know if it's because she's been running so long or what, but I really think she has a good handle on what's going on here and would make a good addition to the board.
Go ahead, Sue. Any other nominations?
Oh,
Sue, do you have a?
well, I was going to say, just for the same sake, Chris has been on a number of committees, has actually served on the board for a time, and has been in the community as long, if not longer, than Donna, so that's.
Brenda, so who else ran for the board? All right, so,
Those were the three who did.
yeah, I would suggest that we review the all three. Do I need to nominate the other? If they're willing to run and review their resumes before we make a decision, that would be what I would feel most comfortable with. Okay, okay. We do have some comments from the residents. Dale?
Madam Chairman, if my name is put in, I decline the nomination.
Thank you, Patty. Dale, go ahead.
Deb Thompson, Hachita Drive. I do want to speak about this, but first of all, I think you did forget, one of the things that I noticed was that you didn't ask about where the manager always says, yes, the notice was posted 40 some hours ahead of time or whatever. I don't know if you just overlooked
No,
that.
I did.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'm sorry, I did not hear it.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna answer Brenda's question. Brenda, I up until this morning, I even put on Facebook, and I'm not afraid to say it, I speak the truth. I do not like Chris Dabrowski, and she does not like me. However, I don't care if I hate somebody. What's right is right. So I did feel this morning that it should be done. However, after being reminded about the time that I'm going to tell you what happened, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, we had this happen one other time. And Eileen Dunn, who had been on the board, wanted to get back to take a spot or however, I don't remember exactly how it went. But we did have someone that lived in here as a resident that had a very good attorney and won a lot of cases. Well, all of a sudden, the resident attorney was now one of our attorneys and said that Eileen could be put up there as a board member. So even though everybody else said she shouldn't because she had already been on the board, we said she couldn't be put back, but somehow or another, she was just up there. So, in my opinion, I can promise you, if it was a situation where it was Sue right now, we know who would be getting up there.
Yes.
I did talk to Eileen about that, and when Eileen was put back on the board, she had run again. She had not used up her 4 years directly on the board. She had only served 2 years and was up for re-election, did not win the re-election, and filled in, was appointed then to fill a spot that was vacated.
So why wasn't the next person with all the votes put in?
Because apparently, according to Sue, it's done both ways. Even if we decide that Chris being the next one would be appointed to the board, it is appointed by us, not through election. And we do not have to follow that.
Well, I think it's about time we really got some things in writing, because I read almost every day. And I don't understand the other weapons on here, because it's different than the way it's worded in our.
So,
Dale, when Eileen was appointed, it was it was before the bylaws were revised. When we revised the bylaws, we made it clear that it should be 2 years, that the 2-year waiting period, if anyone served 4 consecutive years, that the 2-year waiting period would be mandatory. And we also put in the exact wording for what happens when somebody doesn't serve the full, when somebody serves partial term. If the term is over a year, that counts as one of their 2-year terms. So we put that in when we revised the bylaws because we knew there was a problem. But Eileen was appointed before that.
Madam President,
Yes.
if we matter to decide to just table this until our next meeting.
No, we didn't vote on that. We just didn't vote on it. Okay. Rob, you have something to say about this?
No. Tom Sidnowski, 10539 Barnum Court. I admire the board choosing 2 people who did run at least, rather than picking out someone who may arbitrarily be appointed by board members. And I appreciate the fact that we voted for you as board members. But looking at it and trying to perhaps start precedent on this, and I think it might be a good idea to look at this from today on forward. If Chris was indeed the 4th highest vote getter, it would be my opinion that as the will of the people, that she should be afforded the opportunity to be on the board. And if it would have been Donna Mosher, I would be saying the same thing. I think the vote was the will of the people. I appreciate the board members being voted in as they were, and they do have to make the decisions. But I think a precedent should be set. I think this has been arbitrary for too long, and I think it's a very easy solution to satisfy is to just make the next, if this occurs again in the future, to just make this the precedent and set this as the way it is. And if someone else should resign from the board, during the next year, the next person who was after Chris should be afforded the opportunity to be on the board. It was the will of the people. And granted, the directors are the will of the people also. So that's it.
Thank you, Rob. Ann?
Losego 14116. Your documents do not say anything about appointing the next person who had the next highest votes. Just that it's up to the board. And the reason that some people did not get on the board is because of the will of the people. Had the will of the people wanted them on the board, they would have gotten elected to the board. So I believe it should be left up to the board.
Thank you. Eileen?
Eileen Dunmire, Vista Drive. I don't think you should set a precedent by picking people that had, just because they ran in the election. I think it should be open up to the whole community, and they submit their applications, and we decide, as long as they're qualified, you choose among whoever submits an application. That's the way we've always done it, and it's what's fair for everybody. So, that's my 2 cents. I don't think we should be setting precedents by picking the next guy down the line.
Thank you. We're going to, Brenda, do you want to make a motion?
I just want to say I agree with the board. I did a lot of write-ups on Facebook supporting what you've just done, because as a rule, we've always appointed favorite people, so there's been much hanky-panky over the years based on that. So to me, this is the honest thing that we did this time by setting this up. It's not in our documents. That's another thing of many other things that were left out of the rewrites of the documents. That I think that indeed it should be spelled out, just like it was said by Bob. And, it should be just cut and dry. Those that put themselves out there to run should be the next ones to be followed up, just as you just did, which is Chris is next and whoever was after that. Because believe me, when we were on the board and we kept appointing people, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. It was terrible without anything that was in writing. Before, I used to say you appointed them, period, without any nominations or anything. Or perhaps the last three could be nominated and then the board could vote, if there's a preference. But I think this was the way to go, and I thank you.
Jerry, you already spoke on this.
No, I spoke that I wasn't running from back there. I mean,
No, you came up to the microphone.
no, I went back because, and I know, I just want to say is, I have no problem taking next on the list, except this situation had, this Chris, a lot of her votes come from, and I can tell you, a lot of people came up to a bunch of us and said, oh, it's a shame Chris didn't win because it would have been great. They thought it was a different Chris, there's no picture on that application, and that's how Chris got a lot of her votes. Yeah.
So,
The requirements to run for office do not require you to have a picture. If people are voting for someone because they think they're someone else, then they're not doing their due diligence. And I'm sorry that is a very bad reason, in my opinion, to say that that's why you shouldn't put someone on the board. If we were thinking it's the next highest person. These were three other people who put their name out, put themselves out to run for the board. And it was only a month ago, a month and a week.
okay, Debbie, do we have a motion on the?
You have two nominations on. She made a nomination and so did Lemay. We have two.
It's two nominations.
Two nominations. I could get paper here.
Yes, John.
It also kind of sounded like Brenda was headed in a direction of moving to postpone.
Right. Yeah, well, I don't know how, we'll have to take back that motion for the two people that have been nominated.
I did not make a motion. I made a suggestion that we review the qualifications for the three people that ran that were not elected. That was my suggestion. I still would feel most comfortable delaying this until, delaying our vote until I could review the qualifications for the two people that have been nominated. Do you want me to make a motion to that effect, or? We have to have more discussion.
We have to first handle the motion that's already on the floor, correct?
Nominations on the floor. Do you want?
I don't think we don't have a motion on the floor.
You don't have a motion, you have two nominations.
There isn't a motion. There is no motion on the floor. There's a
Thank you.
nomination.
Just two nominations.
Okay. I'm getting confused, I'm sorry. Yes, Brenda, make a motion to table it.
I would like to make a motion to delay the vote on the replacement director until we have a chance to review the qualifications for each nomination.
I'll second.
Not a motion.
I already did it.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're gonna table that till the June 1st, the first meeting in June, sorry. It's not the June 1st, but it's, okay. Unfinished business, pool project update. John, you want to do that for us?
I think LeMay probably wants to talk on that subject, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that I have to add is that the paving contractor came back this week, finished the majority of our punch list items with the one remaining issue being the shower drain. We're tentatively scheduled for Monday for them to come back to correct that.
Okay, did you want to speak, LeMay?
Are we talking about the review of the ceiling pavers? Like I said, Ed Weiner and I talked to the gentleman who is living in Timber Oaks, whose business was pavers and pools, and he was the owner of that business and did it for over 25 years. When he looked at the pavers, and he came down and saw what was done, his suggestion was that we do not seal these pavers. He said, if you do it with the weather that we have here, with the storms and the amount of rain we get through the summer and the heat, that it would basically be a waste of our money, and that a lot of people do not seal. He also stated that if we do decide to seal, it could very easily be done by our own maintenance people. But if you start to seal, you must continue to seal, and this is a project that must be done every 6 months if that's the way you go. In my opinion, after speaking with him, I see no reason to seal the pavers. And I think, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, that you said there was something that they did with the pavers that helps with fading and that, is that correct?
And they say that the new pavers, the pavers that have been made more recently, do have some, in the colors. The colors are more permanent than they've been in the past.
Okay.
And I have, if I may, I've been kind of looking online and all this kind of stuff, and I've seen both recommendations not to pave and not to seal and to seal. But if we were to seal, that we seal with the type of sealant that's absorbed into the paver rather than the one that forms like an acrylic barrier on it. And for what I've seen for most of those, they say that it should be done every 2 to 5 years for those, and it's longer, or 2 to 3 years, and for the ones that form the seal, it's even longer. Because the ones that form the seal tend to be slippery. The ones that will go in are not. And I think we're still better off waiting until we get the top done also before we do anything, the coping. It's silly to do one part now and then have to do it again. It's not gonna hurt the pavers. Yes, LeMay.
I did question that because I know we had talked about, possibly not having to seal them for, every 2 years, but according to the gentleman, Douglas, he said that with the weather that we have here, if you decide to seal, it would have to be done every 6 months. And I mean, since that was his business and his way of earning his living, I kind of would rather take the opinion of someone who's worked with this all the time. And I know even the gentleman who did the job we have out there, even he was back and forth with it, up to you, do it or don't do it, it's up to you, it wasn't recommended. So I kind of feel like we're wasting our time getting bids and going back and forth with this all the time, so my opinion.
Any more comments from the board on this?
I would like to say that with the sealer, you have the problem of slipperiness. So I would suggest that we not do it.
Ian Ostago, 14116. When I served on the board, the pavers that we all agreed on were not supposed to be beveled, and they were supposed to be smoothed. And, because we have a rainy season here, if we don't seal, how often are we gonna have to replace the sand that's in between those cracks? And 3 weeks from my surgery, I came up to see the pavers, used a cane, and because they're irregular, my cane got caught and I almost fell. So those pavers as they stand right now are pretty hazardous to anybody using a cane.
Thank you, Ann. Go ahead, Lynette.
That was one of the questions we asked about was, if we seal the pavers, is this going to help the sand stay in? And we were told no, it does nothing to the sand. The sand will compact, be washed out, however, by the rain, and sealing will not do anything to that.
So what is the board's pleasure?
To be honest, I would like to make a measure that we not seal the pavers.
A motion?
Yes.
I'll second it, but I'll also ask if you would amend it to be discussed again after
If necessary.
after the coping is put on.
Okay, add to the motion, at this time, can be readdressed after the coping is put on if necessary.
Okay. Okay, Debbie, could you read that back to us for clarity? I'm sorry.
The motion was not to seal the pavers at this time and review after the coping project is completed.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a vote. Let's do a roll call. I'm sorry. Just look at that.
It's okay. Susan Muniak?
Yes.
Ed Weiner?
Yes.
Brenda Owens?
Yes.
Lemay Nyford?
Yes.
Jennifer Smiley?
Yes.
And Beverly Hasty.
Yes. Motion carried. Pool furniture replacements. Sue, are you gonna?
Okay. I will reiterate something I said. Right now, in the budget, in the reserve, the first time we're to replace pool furniture is in July, starting July of '22. There would be $16,059 in the budget in the reserve at that time for pool furniture. I'm not saying we need to replace and change or whatever, but that is just when the projected money is there, and then there's more in the year of July 25 through 26. There's an additional $7,000, and I think before we do anything with buying additional, or whether we buy new, different, or the same, I think we need to take a survey of exactly how much good stuff we have, how much doesn't need to, what is in good condition or not. And during the summer, there's less usage than any other time. I don't think it's urgent that if we need more, that we worry about it at this time.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Is there a copy of the reserve studies somewhere that I can see?
Yeah, the reserve spreadsheet.
No, not the budget, not the reserve budget, the actual study that
Yeah.
says we should.
Yeah, there, it's in the office. Debbie can get you a copy.
Thank you.
Lemay.
I thought this was, I know we kind of postponed this the last time, and I'm fine with postponing it until maybe September, October, because I think at this time, as you said, there isn't as much use of the furniture out there. I know, speaking to people, they don't want to see it replaced. But I think we do have to look back on maybe in, I would say September, because at this point, it's taking so long to get anything once you order it. And we do need to have it here before we have the snowbirds come back, because at that time, and especially now with a lot of the bands lifted, more people will be back. It's almost impossible when they are back, unless you come here early and put your towels on a chair, you don't get one. Yeah, and then they're moving stuff down, but you see, you don't know if it's reserved or if they're in the water. So it's kind of difficult in that stage, and if I came out and was in the water and someone took my towel, I would be a little upset about it. And, you know, at this point right now, we don't have enough on the lower level at all. I mean, it's just, everything is haphazard and moved around constantly.
Go ahead, Jen. What I'd like to do is take an inventory of what we have and what we think we need as far as doing a floor plan or a layout of the decking and everything, so that we know what will or won't fit and work for us. Would that be feasible to do a, you know, like a schematic of the decking, you know, the upper and the lower, and find out so we know what will fit?
That's a logical next step, but it probably needs to be done by somebody that's more familiar with the weekend crowds and the after hours crowds. Nobody on the staff would probably be the person.
I've been here 6 years and I use the pool all the time. So I'm pretty aware of what was out there and how things were moved, because we got rid of planters, so we moved tables. And I know there was a table in the corner years ago that was broken and left there for a while and then never replaced, as well as what we need on the lower level. It's nice that they put those rounded tables, you know, for the, what is it called? The happy hour. Thank you. But you can't move those. They're so heavy and bulky. And most tables are hard to move just because we have the umbrellas with the sand bottoms. So I think we need ones that sit pretty much where they are, and we're missing a lot of those. I think. Yes. So I think I would be able to help with that if that's necessary.
Okay. Do I have a motion to table? Go ahead, Eileen.
Yeah, I was on the board at the time when, is this working?
Yes. Yeah.
I was on the board at the time when we purchased a lot of that. I and Mr. Murphy went down to the patio furniture. And this was more than once, because I was on the board for a while. Did the original purchase. The tabletops can be purchased separately. If you just need the tabletop, if you just need the legs, you can buy the legs. Our guys can fix the straps on the lounge chairs. Looks like I used to go out there and actually count them, because sometimes they would end up down to maintenance things and the guys weren't doing anything with them. So that's why it's a shortage. Sometimes somebody has to keep track of that. Somebody should be on the maintenance, keeping, when they take them away to fix them, they should come back. It doesn't take long for them to do that. And also, the furniture we had is still in existence, it's still being sold today, so it's not out of date. It's easily repairable. It's not like you're putting in, I know one time we looked at pieces that were $300-400 a piece, and it wasn't going to last. Once they were broken, you couldn't fix them. Once they rusted, you had to throw them away. I mean, when we looked at stuff, this was repairable, usable, and washable. And I would suggest too that you purchase these items closer towards September, maybe in August, because it does take time for delivery. And you can see some of the tabletops are cracked in the edges. And you just need to see what's out there and take an inventory of what's, maybe you need some legs, maybe you need some tabletops.
Thank you.
Maybe some little side tables and what's what.
Thank you for your input, Eileen.
I don't pretend to understand enough about the reserves, but Sue said we wouldn't have enough money in there until 2022. So is that what we're saying? And we won't have enough in there to even be doing all this talking about ordering stuff. And my perception is that we don't have any money in there now to buy what you're suggesting. So am I confused about that? Because then I
We're not suggesting to buy anything now.
Well, she said we're going to take an inventory
Well, you have to do that if you're gonna do it for any,
But the question I'm asking is, the money won't be available till 22?
It won't be fully funded.
It won't be fully funded, I'm sorry.
it won't be fully funded. That does not mean there's no money in the pool reserve. It means it's not fully funded. You put money in the reserve expecting to pay it out at a certain point. We expected the furniture to need to be replaced in 22, at least 16,000 of it to be replaced then. And then we had 3 years later, which is what Eileen was talking about. There was an initial purchase and then some more purchase in 25 and 26. Now, if we decide earlier that we want to do this earlier, we want to stay with the same purchase, we can make changes to the budget. We might be able to move some money into a reserve, or we can start funding the reserve more, all according to what we're going to do. But this is a good time to start planning what we're going to do.
Yeah, well, I'm in favor of planning, I was just trying to get that straight. Last time I misunderstood it also. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies. Good afternoon. Mary Noctegal, 10805 Buckfield Drive, Port Richey. Hi, guys. In regards to the furniture, I go to the pool almost every single day. The furniture is presentable. It's not decorative. And if you can replace and fit it in so you don't have to replace the whole decking, I think that's a good idea. And I have a question. How many people are supposed to be actually in the pool at one time? Does anybody know?
There's a load limit.
Yeah, does anybody know how many?
I believe it's 38.
Okay, well, there was 39 last week. Just to let you know, what are you gonna do with that? I mean, nothing. Anyway, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, can I have a motion to review?
Can I make a motion that we table this and look at it again in, let's say, August? And that in the meantime, we do a study or a plan so that we're prepared at that time.
And are you prepared to do this study?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
Not by myself.
I know, well.
I come in the morning.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. There any questions? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, vendor and service policy. Everyone on the board, in your packets, you got the waiver and release of liability that Sue and Jennifer and the attorney put together. We need to make a vote.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
The letter that's before that, where the lawyer says he had a couple of tweaks, is that done on? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's been tweaked.
That's a good question.
Okay.
I think the one thing which is.
Yes,
I have
Brenda.
a question. So I guess one of the tweaks was that the vendor, the person signing it, if it's a corporation, they need to sign it individually and as the corporation, which that's not on the form. It doesn't say that they are individuals or they are an officer of a corporation on the form. So I would suggest that perhaps that we should add that. They can cross it out or circle it or whatever applies to them. Also, I had a question about, is it up to the vendor to get their employees to sign these. I'm not sure how we're gonna go about enforcing that part of it.
Last night, the band that played, I guess it was the manager that had one of the bands, he signed it. This particular one, because this is all we had to give him. And I think for a food truck, it would be if the owner of the food truck is here, he would be the one to sign. If he just sends people, I guess it's everybody. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong. You have any comments on that? Okay, John, go ahead.
If you want me to try to interpret what the attorney's saying in the email that we have, I think what he's suggesting is, and to go back to, I think it was Brenda's original comment, it's not that they want another line on the form. I think they would want the president of that corporation to sign two forms. One is an individual, and the second form is the president of the corporate, like John Smith, individual, and then sign the second one, John Smith, president of such and such, right? And then additionally, anybody that shows up on the property to perform a service, whether it's the owner of the company or 3 employees of that company, they all just as individuals sign a waiver, individual waivers for individuals. There was also a conversation with this attorney, and so I'm reading between the lines, but because of the conversation.
So if you have an individual who's working for the vendor and the owner or president or whatever of that truck is not along, how do the workers release liability for the actual vendor, for the truck or anything that is around there?
I would say, and this is just my opinion, that who's ever hiring the food truck would have to make sure that they get this ahead of time.
Actually, food vendors have to have the proof of life on the second page. That's not a waiver. They need proof of liability and evidence of license and workman's comp proof.
Since this wasn't done ahead of time, by any chance, could one
Please, no outbursts at this time. Okay, Sue.
If you go to the policy first, before we look at the waiver, the second page, Brenda, the thing, for food vendors. Yeah, for food vendors, they would be like any other vendor that we have to do, that we pay through the TSCA account. They have to show proof of liability insurance, evidence of a county license, the W-9 if we're gonna pay them more than $600 in a year, and proof of workers' compensation coverage. They don't have to sign any waiver because they have that. If an exercise instructor for pay or volunteer would need proof of liability insurance. And most of your Zumba instructors, they get that insurance through the Zumba organization or other than that. Other paid vendors, examples, bands and entertainment, proof of liability insurance or a signed waiver hold harmless agreement. Volunteers with some form of payment, example, a tip jar. No matter whether they're a Timber Oaks resident or not, if they volunteer with some form of payment, they have to sign the waiver. And all of the volunteers, if you volunteer to run trivia and you don't put out a tip jar or anything like that, you're covered. Because as we got in the email from John today, was it today or yesterday, one of the two, that what the definition of a covered person is, any type of remuneration. It doesn't matter if it's tips or whatever, means you're no longer covered. A volunteer means no pay. And we were told when we had a conversation with the attorney that if something were to happen, God forbid something happens, and we get taken to court, a judge might say a tip jar is nothing. Another judge might say that's pay. So it's CYA, and especially since our insurance says any form of remuneration that we are asking for them to sign the waiver.
Justice Lemon.
My question is, and I'll use this as an example. One night at the Tuesday with the gazebo, Robin and Laurie and their husbands did hot dogs, and we all donated, gave whatever, it was $5, which was then turned over to the band. Are they then required to sign the waiver?
Yes.
I would think yes.
John, go ahead.
Reimbursement for goods or supplies.
Well, but that.
You would be insured, under the toxic insurance, if you're being reimbursed for your purchase of hot dogs. If you didn't make a profit, that's covered.
They were taking, the reimbursement was not for the hot dogs, they gave that to the band.
I'm just saying, that if you're being reimbursed for goods.
The reimbursement was given to them, and they did pay for everything, so they basically donated that to the band. It gets really confusing on some of this.
The other comment I had was, there's two separate issues here, right? There's a waiver, but that's secondary. If you approve the policy that requires a waiver, then you should start with the policy and approve the policy. If you don't approve the policy, then there's no waiver to review.
Well, that's.
Okay, Brenda.
I have a question. So I just want to make sure I understand the policy. This waiver is not required of everyone.
Correct.
What is required of food vendors is listed on the policy,
Yes,
and only those things are required.
yes. Because the liability insurance covers them for the liability, which is what the waiver was.
Okay, so I guess I need to have the policy amended, because or I need to understand, if they don't have these, they can't be a vendor? Or in lieu of not having these, they can sign the waiver?
No, for food vendors, they must have this. Absolutely, positively have this. Just like we require, Timber Oaks requires of all the vendors that we use, they have to have this. We cannot pay a vendor if they don't come through with all of that. That is, the management company won't write a check unless they have the proof of liability insurance, the evidence of the county license, or for a food vendor. And they would have it. Most companies, of anyone who's does have it. Now, for the excise insurance, that was from the attorney, that we need to really have some sort of liability insurance because of the fact of it being exercise. Even if they're, other paid vendors, bands or entertainment, if they don't have proof of liability insurance, then they have to sign the waiver. Some bands will have proof of liability insurance, especially if they're working through an agent, they would have the proof of liability. Okay, and then, of course, the volunteers with some form of payment, in other words, a tip jar would be because of the fact they're getting remuneration and they're not covered under our insurance policy because they're getting some sort of remuneration. And all of the volunteers. If you volunteer to be on the finance committee, you do not need to sign a waiver. If you volunteer for Live Oaks, you don't need to sign a waiver.
Okay,
Go ahead, Brenda.
I'm asking. Now, I'm really confused by what the attorney has asked us to do because,
Can I give you some clarification, because you weren't at the last meeting, right?
no,
So just to let you know, in case you missed it, at the last meeting, Jennifer and Sue were appointed to draft the policy. So don't look at this like it's written in stone, it's their draft for board review.
well, I can tell what the attorney has requested is not on the policy. I'm confused because there's no place on here that the vendors' employees are required to submit anything to us.
He's talking about the waiver.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand. So are we only saying, is he only saying when a waiver is needed, it needs to be signed by all the vendor employees? I'm confused by that.
Okay, let me read something then, if my phone will cooperate. Go back the other way, please. Where are you? Okay, this was my question to the attorney by email was, do we need a waiver? What kind of waiver do we need? You know, if we have people. And his answer, in terms of a liability waiver hold harmless agreement, such an agreement would provide the association with some protection for the individual that actually executes the agreement. Thus, in terms of a DJ that plays music at events for tips, or a Zumba instructor that does the same for lessons, if those people would sign a waiver hold harmless agreement, then the association would have some protection if they were injured while on association property. What the waiver hold harmless agreement will not do is fully protect the association in the event a resident or guest is injured while at the Zumba lesson or a dance where the DJ is playing. The only way to prevent that sort of risk would be to require any vendor to be licensed and insured. Without insurance for third parties, the fact that a dance instructor or DJ signed an agreement with TOPSA would not matter if an attendee is injured or sues all parties, including TOPSA. I will say that if the board wants to consider the nature of the service, for example, a relatively low-risk activity like a DJ playing music, and wants to allow him to continue, then getting a waiver hold harmless agreement would provide the association with some protection if he were hurt while playing music. That protection is better than not having any with regard to the individual providing the service. However, if the activity is higher risk, say something like a caterer that will serve sushi or another dish that could potentially cause injury to residents, then I would advise the board to carefully consider allowing such a vendor on association property without insurance. A hold harmless agreement with a caterer or other high-risk service would not provide any protection to the association in the event that someone is injured while attending the event. With respect to individuals who teach Zumba, dancing, or provide computer instruction, I believe it would not matter whether the individual is a resident or not. It may matter whether or not the court felt that putting out a tip jar and receiving gratuities for their service were equivalent to the association paying that person. I have not, then he goes, I have not done research and and it says if the association has a specific rider that covers volunteers, which we do, it would depend on what a specific judge believes the term means. And our insurance policy defined that for us. And either he or she would feel that the association is not making any payment to the person providing the service, and the person was still a volunteer, or conversely, the judge may feel that a person that receives tips is still being paid and is not under the insurance contract a true volunteer. That would be an interesting legal to litigate, but he didn't want to, and we don't want to. And he says, in terms of protection for the association, I would suggest a general hierarchy of options the board should consider. First, if at all possible, require any vendor allowed on the association property to have insurance. Second, if that's not possible or feasible, require any vendor that is still desired to sign a waiver or hold harmless agreement. And, you know, that is what we took to guide what we wrote as the policy. Okay, Lene?
I think Brenda, your main consideration is the fact that, you know, even though he said all this, you don't see it in writing on this, but it also says that whoever signs it, it requires the signing vendor to indemnify, hold harmless, and release toxins. So he didn't write out, there's nothing written out in this waiver of, you have to sign it or you have to sign it. By doing this, you do this. Whoever signs it must go by this waiver. So it's not spelled out in the waiver. That is spelled out more or less in the suggestions he has to who needs to sign the waiver and who doesn't. I make a motion that we accept the waiver and release of liability that was presented to us as is.
A second.
There's no more. John?
We should still approve the policy first.
Well, don't we have to approve the waiver before we then go to our policy and how we're going to handle this waiver?
Well, it's
Six of one or
six
half a
of one or half a dozen of the other.
Okay, so.
Well, there's a motion, do you want to? Yeah, there's a motion on the table, to approve the waiver as is.
And it was seconded.
And it was seconded, yes. Okay, we'll have a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, now the policy. So.
Well, should we get the motion on the floor? Should we get the motion on the floor?
I just have a comment. We can
Okay.
make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the liability policy for Timber Oaks Community Service Association in reference to activities and events.
I'll second.
Okay. Now we can have discussion. Go ahead, Brenda.
Okay. So there are parts of the waiver that we just agreed to that cover the employees of the vendors, the co-workers, and anyone under the direction of whoever signs the waiver. The issue that I have is that for food vendors, the waiver's not required.
That's because the proof of liability insurance will cover the vendor. And that's what the attorney said, the best thing is to have them have the liability insurance.
That covers them and their company's employees or whoever's working with them.
That's why the proof of workman's comp, because if they have workman's comp, if they're hurt on the job, which could be wherever the job is, then
it doesn't cover someone else attending the function.
But if the people attending the function are all, TSCA would be under our volunteer.
If someone that's there dancing trips over a cord and breaks their nose.
Whose cord?
The vendor's cord.
If it's the vendor's cord and it's the food vendor, if it's the food vendor, then his liability insurance will cover it. But if it's a DJ or whatever, and they're up on, okay, if it's a DJ or a band on our stage, if they don't have liability insurance, because some of them will have liability insurance, and they sign this waiver, then it would be covered. So we're looking for either the insurance as an insurance policy that they have for liability, or we're looking for them to sign our waiver, which the waiver will cover all their employees and their stuff.
Okay, thanks.
So according to this policy, the gentleman who at this point is going after us.
There's no update to that, by the way.
Okay. So wouldn't he have had liability and evidence of a county license in order to have this food truck?
We don't know. We didn't require it or require proof of it.
Did Live Oaks, I thought that Laurie said that they did check that.
And that was on that vendor case.
Okay, so
Somebody else.
that one's still pending. We have no.
Somebody dropped the ball.
Okay.
Can you,
Is there a motion?
yeah, we have one. Go ahead.
Karen Luciola, 8035 Casarina. Are we now declining and or not allowing food trucks and or whatever unless they sign and have all the paperwork? Are we now going to refuse people?
Yes,
Okay,
it should be evident that they don't sign and they don't have insurance, they don't have licenses, then we can't, unfortunately, we can't take that chance. Okay, vote. Let's have a vote. Can you clarify the motion, please?
To approve the liability policy for Timber Oaks Community Service Association in reference to activities and events as presented today.
Again, could you repeat that, please? Sorry.
It's to approve the liability policy for Timber Oaks Community Services in reference to activities and events as presented at this meeting.
Okay. We're taking a vote, Eileen.
I wanted to ask a question. Is that part about the, having to vet the vendors or anybody else? Is that in the policy? That part you were speaking about?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now, moving along to new business. Okay, review of secondary flags.
Not making a motion, we're just clarifying.
Yes, we're clarifying it. All right, this has come up because of some people have had deed restrictions made because of flags. And our documents are pretty clear in what they say. And, okay, my papers are all over the place right now. Here we go. In our policy, in our ARC guidelines, under flag, it's number 14 in the guidelines. Under flag poles, number 14, which is on page 7 of the ARC guidelines, says that a flagpole is allowed if mounted on the home. A ground pole is allowed, it can be no more than 20 feet high. Both can fly a standard size American flag, which is no more than 4 feet 2 inches by 6 foot. That's in the ARC guidelines. Florida law says, there's my Florida law in 720-304, section 2A. And my copy is all over the place now. Yeah, I can read it. Thank you, Beth. 2A, a homeowner may display one portable, this is HOA law. A homeowner may display one portable, removable United States flag or official flag
of the state of Florida in a respectful manner, and one portable removal official flag in a respectful manner not larger than 4.5 feet by 6 feet, which represents the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard, or POW MIA flag, regardless of any covenants, restrictions, bylaws, rules, or requirements of the association. And then B says any homeowner may erect a freestanding flagpole no more than 20 feet high or on any portion of the homeowner's real property, regardless of any covenants, restrictions, bylaws, rules, or requirements of the association. If the flagpole does not obstruct sight lines of intersections, and then it goes, the homeowner may further display in a respectful manner from that flagpole, regardless of any covenants, restrictions, bylaws, rules, or requirements of the association, one official United States flag not larger than 4.5 feet by 6 feet, and may additionally display one official flag of the state of Florida, or the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or Coast Guard, or POW MIA flag. Such additional flag must be equal in size to or smaller than the U.S. flag. The flagpole and display are subject to all building codes and all, which is that the rest of it is not applicable. I will also say that in August of last year, we had a discussion, and the board at that time, now I find it right. The board at that time voted, and I have the minutes right here, to exempt someone from that second, because the flag, there was a discussion of whether a certain flag was or was not a military flag. I've did research on the flag, and of course the official American flag is the Stars and Stripes. That is the only official American flag. As far as flags of the United States Armed Forces, there's flags, and there's even now a flag of the U.S. Space Force, and then also maritime flags, and nowhere is the flag that is up one of those. It is not the first Navy Jack, which is similar, is red and white stripes on with the snake and the "Don't Tread on Me," but it is not the Gadsden flag, which is a yellow flag with that. And that naval jack has been retired in 2019. If we are going to enforce our bylaws the way the bylaws are written, then those it should be clear as to what we can, because we have one of the complaints that is coming up after is in reference to a secondary flag that's been asked to be taken down. So I'm asking for the board to reconfirm that we are following our bylaws.
First off, the Florida state laws are to cover you in what rights you have as to what flag you can fly, no matter what your community says and what their bylaws are. So they don't really affect what we have said. We do allow a flagpole. You can fly an American flag on it. It does not say you cannot fly other flags on it. I went out and looked at the flag in question. I have a flag that is posted on my porch, which backs the blue, the police. It is an American flag with a blue stripe. I will not take it down, and I have a right to have that up. I think what you're talking about is something that is not spelled out in our documents, because nowhere does it say you cannot fly another flag. It says you can fly a 4x6 flag, nothing more. And when I was on the art committee and we looked at things, it was determined that you could not turn something down unless there was something specifically that said it was against our documents. There is nothing that says this is against our documents. This is not a flag that is against anyone's religious views or political views. It is not a political flag. It is a flag that is the American flag with a red stripe and a blue stripe, and I'm not sure what the other stripe is on, but it's to support our volunteers and our paid enforcement. So I see nothing wrong with it, and I don't see how that can be enforced.
Well, I, just as from our documents, both can fly a standard size American flag.
Correct, they can fly that. Where does it say you cannot fly anything but that? It does not say that. And that I was told on the art committee, we could not arbitrarily vote on something that was not in writing in those documents. There is nothing stating you cannot fly a different flag.
It does say, the very beginning of 2A, any homeowner may display one portable flag.
Is a portable.
2A under what? 720.
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead. Ed.
Yes. I fly a flag. I fly American flag. I fly Don't Tread on Me flag. This was discussed back in August. It was approved. I don't appreciate it being brought up when I'm not there, now that you're going after my flag again. Other people have flags. This is ridiculous. I move that this whole subject be tabled until I can be back.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I think we have a president that would like to say.
Yes, John.
Just a comment, if you follow LeMay's thought, if I follow LeMay's thought process, then that tells me that it's an architectural question, and if you want to mount a flag other than the American flag, you should submit an art request. Because it's in the architectural standards.
But it's not. It is not in the architectural standard.
What if I want to paint a color that's not on the color?
That is ruled by the art committee. Whether or not you put another flag on that flagpole, there is nothing in the art covenant. So if someone says to me, can I put a second flag on it? Yeah, go ahead, because there's nothing in here that says you can't.
But there's a guideline that tells you what you can do.
What you can do. So they can fly. So are you saying that if you put a flagpole up, you have to put in an arc to fly an American flag?
No,
Because that's in our
because the
covenant.
guidelines tell you to do that.
But you have to put an arc in if you want to paint a color that's approved by the art committee. So,
It's in your architectural standards, you follow your architectural guidelines.
so then you would have to put one in to put an American flag up, whereas if you put another flag up, there is nothing that says you can't. It has to be better defined in the art covenant if that's what you're going to enforce.
I took a class, a board class at my time. Sorry. I took a board class at one time, and the instructor was very blunt and said, you all as a board need to pass a rule that just because it says you can doesn't mean, just because it doesn't say you can, doesn't mean that you can. In other words, just because it doesn't have it written out A, B, or C doesn't mean that A, B, and C are allowed. But we've never done that. We probably should.
Is there any more, board discussion? Thank you.
The vote was 3-3.
Time. For now.
You want to repeat that?
Okay. And the motion, the motion to table was tied, so we're not gonna talk about it. We can't table it because it was tied. Did you hear that, Ed?
No.
I don't know what all that was.
Can I say?
Ed, the motion that you made to table discussions until you are back was voted on and was tied 3-3, so the motion did not carry.
Well, I don't appreciate this being brought up when you know that I have a vested interest in this, and you wait till you find out I'm not gonna be there, and you bring this up.
I don't think we knew you weren't gonna be here. I didn't know you weren't gonna be here. Nor did I. I thought if anyone wasn't going to be here, it was gonna be Brenda. I mean, because Brenda did not think she was going to be here. But we did not know you were not here. Go ahead, John.
Just to go back to my point, in regard to the architectural standards, then you would refer to the general gray language that says you've got to get approval for anything you do to the exterior.
Repeat that, John.
I would go back to my original point that says that if you do anything to the exterior, and I'm paraphrasing, and because I don't have the documents memorized, you would go back to the architectural standards that require you to get approval prior to doing any work to the exterior of your property.
You would have to get an ARC permit to put a flagpole up, right?
Yes.
And on
Yes,
that,
definitely.
okay, on that flagpole, it says you can have an American flag.
Correct.
It does not say that you can have any other flag. So if you want to do something other than an American flag on that flagpole, then you would need to put an arc in.
No, you need to put an arc in to have the flagpole put up because the flagpole has a height restriction and where it can be. You do not have to put another arc in if you want to fly the American flag on it or any other flag. You can fly an American flag. It doesn't say you can't fly anything else. And I've gone over this and over this with John because there were things like the carport that was put up in the family section. We turned it down. We had to be very careful with that because we had to find something that specifically said you could not have what they had. We do not have anything that specifically says you cannot have any other flags on your flagpole. We do not have that. So if we can't do it with a carport, we can't do it with a flag. That's my whole thing, and I worked this and was told this is the way it must be, because we set ourselves up for liability.
So I think the issue is that, the flags that are in question now really aren't covered by our documents. So if we want to address the issue going forward, we need to change the documents so that it addresses whatever is the offensive issue. Do I have that correct?
Yes. You would have to change the ARC forms to read specifically what is not allowed.
Well, you don't have to state.
Or you would have to say you can only have.
You can only have
could
this
be a
flag,
problem.
which also could likely be challenged. We could say that this is the only one that is pre-approved. The American flag is the only one that's pre-approved. It does not require an ARC form to be filled out. All other flags that wish to be flown need to be approved by the board or something, or the ARC committee or something similar to that.
Or we can say that it must meet the guidelines as in 723.0
Or that.
or point.
I mean, those are specifically exempted anyway, because.
Well, and in that it says the homeowner may have an American flag and one of the military or MIA or whatever that would be Florida statutes, that refer it back to Florida statute.
What about garden flags? People have a spring flag, they have a summer flag, they have a garden flag, they have all kinds of different flags.
Correct. So we would have to guide all of that. I think we're stepping into something we don't even want to get into. We have enough trouble at this point with, someone going around and sending fine letters with big issues. We have too much there to even handle, let alone try and determine what flags are allowed. I know we are not allowed political flags, and I agree with that, but I think we're way overstepping our bounds to say you cannot fly anything but the American flag or what goes by Florida statutes. That is personal rights, but let's not get to be a state-governed homeowners association.
Okay, Ann, you have something on this?
Yes.
Ann Osika 14116. We do have, we are allowed the small garden flags. I agree with LeBay and also Brenda. There's nothing that says that you cannot fly another flag. And as far as the Don't Tread on Me, it is flown on the USS Constitution.
No, it is not.
It will always be flown on the USS Constitution.
The flag that's flown on the U.S. Constitution is red and white stripes with the snake. It is not the yellow Gadsden flag.
Okay, well, this was already debated way back in August, okay? The Gadsden flag was adopted by the US Navy. Okay, you want to do the research, go research it again. I did a lot of homework on this. Regardless, all right, so you're now going to put a letter out saying that if you have a flag flying, on your front porch that says welcome spring or happy Valentine's Day, well, of course, that's a holiday one, that one would be allowed. But are you now going to say somebody that's flying, a Polish flag or an Italian flag or whatever, you all have to take those down now? So that's what you're saying?
No, that's not.
Well, you're saying now that it can only be the U.S. American flag, according to Sue.
We did not make a motion to do that.
I realize that, but your argument is that no other flags can be flown.
I'm saying that's following our guidelines.
Thank you, Ann.
Well, I think you also have to follow 720, which
Right.
the military flags. But I do think that what our guidelines and our documents say is that they are giving you the guidelines as to how you fly the American flag. It doesn't talk about any other flags. It strictly gives you can fly the American flag if you do such and such. You can have a flagpole if you do such and such. It doesn't really speak to other flags. I mean, and if you only wanted to be the American flag, you probably should have put in the word, you can only fly the American flag, and we didn't do that. So maybe that needs to be changed if that's all you want. Or you would have to say what kind of flags, college flags, I don't know if we want, Arab flags flying, Israeli flags. I mean, we could have a whole big mess of it.
Thank you, Eileen. Dale?
Yeah, Thompson Hachita Drive. First of all, I feel bad, Ed, that you're, concerned like you are. You can speak anything you want, just like you're here. And I just want to say one thing. When this all did happen and it was okay, Jennifer, do you still have your flag that you went and bought up?
Nope. I have an American flag.
And why did you take the other one down that you purposely went and bought and put up?
Which one?
I
I
believe
have 13 flags in my garage. You have to be more
the one that you private messaged me that you went out and bought this afternoon and put up.
Oh, I have to put that up.
Oh, you never put it up?
I'd like to clarify, Karen Luciola, 8035 Casarina. My flag that is at the controversy over this, first of all, you keep repeating the same stuff, Sue, and that's your interpretation, okay? I have a different interpretation. My interpretation is that if it doesn't say it, then you need to start now with the committee of residents and start putting together things that you want in the rules and put stuff that you want clarified in the rules. But I'd like everyone in here to know what's on my flag. It says military, police, firefighters, dispatch, nurses, EMTs, and corrections. There's nothing offensive about that. It's about the people that serve us daily in our community.
Yeah. All right.
My name is Ed Pepper from Calder Lake Drive. So I'd just like to have you clarify something. You're quoting 723.
720,
You said-
section 720, 304.
When you quoted up here audibly, I sit there and heard you said 723.
23.304.
That 723 is not this organization.
I know, it's 720, what I was reading is 720.304, and of course now it's. 2A.
You're quoting 723. There are.
720.
You just said 723.
720, in 720, section .3042A. And if you want a copy of it, I
No, I
will.
don't need a copy of it, but I'm just saying you quoted 723. There are two homeowners organizations under the 720 rules and regulations of the state of Florida. This is not a 723 organization. This is a 720, and all the ones in there would be prefaced by 720 - something else.
That's what I'm saying, it's 720 dot
I'm not
304.
disagreeing with you there, but you audibly said 723.
I'm sorry if I misspoke. Thank you, Ed. Okay, what do you want to do about this? John, we had discussion, we had a vote. What's next?
Before we vote, I'd like to make one last comment.
Okay, go ahead.
We are a community organization. Why do we care what kind of flag someone flies? That's a personal decision. It affects nobody but that person that flies it. Why? That's not our job to monitor what someone does unless it affects the neighborhood. It doesn't affect the neighborhood. It doesn't cause anybody's property values to go down. This is about individual freedom. This is America. My goodness.
Go ahead, John.
Well, if the last motion on the floor failed to pass and there's no additional motion on the floor, we move on to the next item on the agenda. But with that being said, without clear direction from the board, we enforce the documents according to my understanding.
And so your understanding is that a secondary flag on a flagpole is not allowed?
As per your documents and as per Florida statute, it's very clear to me what's allowed.
I don't think it's clear at all, and I think the board has more of a right to state that than our manager does.
Correct.
So
But the board hasn't stated that.
Okay, but we have not changed our statutes in the architectural review, which says you can fly an American flag. It does not say you cannot fly a secondary flag. It does not say you cannot fly a different flag than the American flag. So I think we're kind of at a standstill on this, and you are the one who taught me that.
Okay, can I? John, did you want to finish saying anything?
It's just a blanket statement without clear instruction from the board. I do what my experience tells me to do according to your documents and Florida statute.
Okay, thank you. So, I don't know if this will go anywhere, but I would make a motion that we have our attorney of record interpret what our documents are.
No, this is $200 we're gonna pay an attorney to look at something that we shouldn't even be talking about. I'm sorry, but unless you're going to go up there and put a political flag or a pirate's flag, which is all over the place, or you're going to put a Confederate flag or something that is offensive to most people, then we don't have a right to tell people they can't put a flag up. And to tell someone that they can't put a flag up that honors the people that take care of us, volunteer or paid, to me is just wrong, dead wrong.
And I will tell you, I have no problem with Karen's flag. I don't think that I don't think it is offensive. I am just trying to follow our documents as I believe that they are written.
You're wrong.
And that is the only thing. Now, I will argue whether the Gadsden flag is a military flag or not. That's a different argument.
And this one shouldn't even be brought up. It was already voted on, as I think it was voted on twice. Twice. It came up numerous times since the last time it was okay. It has come up numerous times. Each time Ed has had to stand up and say, this should not be brought up. Yes, it came up again after that meeting, because I have been here at the meetings. And I know Ed said this was already decided and should not be put up again. And it seems like we're reviewing it again because of what is going on now. And I also find it odd that Karen, complains about the He Is Risen sign and then gets a second citation for another flag. I have a funny feeling, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, that we are not picking on people who come up here and voice their opinions.
That's what it seems.
It does.
We are not doing that.
You may not, but Beverly, your name's on the bottom of my letter and there's no signature. And this guy doesn't follow our deed restrictions. He can't even tell an Easter decoration 3 days before Easter. Why am I getting harassed? And where is my written apology? Thank you.
You didn't get the second letter, did you?
Yes, I got a second letter. No, I got the second letter for the flag. I want an apology. I got that letter 3 days before Easter for my Easter decoration. That was uncalled for. And if the guy can't read our deed restriction, he shouldn't have the job.
Thank you for your input. Jerry, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say is, so in other words, what I'm hearing, like all these football, baseball flags and all that stuff, you can't have up. Right? So how come like all of a sudden Karen spoke up then, and these baseball and football flags and school flags all went up all over Timber Oaks, and then she speaks up, and then somebody starts sending her a letter on a second flag? It just doesn't seem right. It looks like somebody's picking it up. And I guess if I don't get my vote one way, I get it the other, or I just take my ball and go home and stick to the old rules, right?
Okay. We're going to move on to the finding policy because this is going on way too long. There is no outcome at this time. No.
We voted and it was a tie vote. Wash.
Okay, fine policy, review and potential approval of fine collection policy, which is silly. I'd like to make a motion that when a homeowner's total fines reach $1,000, an intent to lien letter be sent
and followed up with sending to attorney if still necessary. Is there any, discussion? There is, okay. We do not have a collection policy for fines. We have the fining and it goes on their account, but it is not covered in our collection policy because our collection policy covers assessments and what happens with assessments. I checked with RPM, they do send the letters when there's money still owing on the account. But, and if it gets to a point where it's 90 days and they haven't paid the fine, I have not yet seen one that has had a lien to intent on, and I will get back with RPM to make sure that that letter would be sent. For assessments, we do, after 90 days, they automatically get the intent to lien. This is for someone, let's say, who had a fine, didn't correct it until, I don't know, 30 days after. And then they came to the office and said, it's been fixed. At that point, we freeze the fine, but the fine is still there. And we have some people who have paid the fine and other people who have not. And it's just a matter of what do we do with these people who have not? We can wait until they eventually sell their house and then the estoppel will show that they owe this much money. But we're not allowed to charge interest on it. We're not allowed to say it's a late payment or whatever on it like we are with assessments. It just sits there. This might encourage people to pay before it gets to the attorney.
So is this a new policy or is this a change to the collections policy to include fines?
It in essence is a motion to allow us to go to the attorney. I mean, we could, but if the board approves this, I mean, I can bring each one individually to the board to do it. But if we do this, the treasurer, whomever he or she may be, would be able to say when RPM sends the lien, the intent to lien, that we can then after, because when you get an intent to lien, that means that you have 45 days to correct it. You have to pay for the letter, it's a $50 charge on your account for them going through the research and whatever it costs for them to certify mail the document. Then if we don't do this, I would feel after the intent of lien, this would allow the treasurer or whatever to say, send it to the attorney. If not, then I will start bringing, there are, I think, 2 right now that I would bring to the board and say, this is this, do we want to send it? John?
Maybe just to help Brenda understand, there's a collection policy in place and it was edited and updated last year by the board. That collection policy only refers to your assessment. Doesn't refer to fines. So Sue's just clarifying that existing policy to include, we're basically taking the same action on fines as we are assessments.
And we put $1,000 because you can't put a lien on for less than 1,000.
Okay, thanks.
So basically, once we put the lien on, nothing else is done?
Once we put the lien on, the attorney, if we put the lien on, if in 45 days, with the intent to lien, and then they have 45 days. Once we put the lien on, we send it to the attorney keeps trying to contact them. And it doesn't cost us anything to send it to the attorney, but it costs the homeowner a lot.
But they're not paying anything. At that point, they're not paying anything. So eventually we collect when the house is foreclosed on or sold.
Right.
Okay. In the meantime, we're out this money and we don't get interest on it. Correct.
It just, that's the way it is. We can't charge interest or late fees on a fine.
Before it goes into a lien, they resolve the problem, the fines are still there.
Right, if they have resolved it on the first letters,
right,
then it's gone, there's nothing. Once they go to the fining committee, if they go to the hearing, if they go to the hearing and say, but look, I did solve this and all this, the fining committee will say, okay, it's resolved, there is no fine, sorry board, but your fine doesn't go into effect. But otherwise, they have 5 days from the time the fining committee does its fine to.
What I'm asking is, so they've gone into the point where they are being fined, and let's say they owe us, I don't know, $500. At that point, we basically might never recoup that money. So even if they owe us $500, we can't put a lien on the house.
Not for $500 in fine.
So how do we get paid when the house is sold? Is that
through the estoppel process?
Okay.
The estoppel goes ahead and looks to see what is owed on this property.
Okay.
And that's how we get what we get. Okay, do we need to vote on anything? Yes, I have made a motion. Yes. And I've got it written down, so I move that when a homeowner's total fines reaches $1,000, well, the fine total reaches $1,000, an intent to lien letter be sent and follow up with sending to the attorney if necessary. And even though we actually, when we put them to fine, it can go up to 5,000. We will, once it reaches 1,000, put the lien, and then the attorney keeps updating it as the days go longer. Because, we've been using $50 a day.
Did we have a second on that? Okay. Let's take a vote.
You want to roll for me?
Yes, please.
I have Susan Munier,
Yes.
Ed Weiner,
Yes.
Brenda Owens,
Yes.
Yes.
Lemay Nyford,
Yes.
Jennifer Smiley,
Yes.
Beverly Hastings.
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, landscaping.
So just an update on the clubhouse project. We have requested from numerous contractors to submit bids based on our plan. We're still waiting for proposals to come back. And we've got a tree proposal here for Oaks Park in general, and the part of Oaks Park that curls around and comes back to Maricopa. There's some significant tree cleanup that needs to be done over there. And so this proposal is hopefully to complete that project. If not, hopefully it's a good start.
Yeah, I have a question about it. It says it's limited to 2 days of work. Do you think that's enough?
It's very hard to tell. I don't know how productive they'll be until they get underway. Oaks Park isn't real bad. You could get a better prediction on Oaks Park, but the part that curls around, if it has anyone on the boardwalk, that section, it's a lot of oak trees. It's a lot of very old oak trees, and there's a lot of dead.
follow-up question. I'm curious why we didn't get a bid to complete the job instead of just 2 days.
He would have given me a T&M proposal. So, and Brenda, just to clarify, this is what we did around the clubhouse. He's charging us for a crew of 3 people and equipment, $1,400 a day. So it's a very good price. And we think we're getting more production by doing it that way, we think.
We have a motion to accept the proposal.
I'll make a motion that we accept the proposal for 3 Seasons Lawn and Landscaping to do tree work as directed by management for 2 days of work for a total of $2,800.
I'll second it.
Oak Park. Where the hell is Oak Park? Down the street here on Rosa, right across where Oba comes from.
Oh, the dog park.
No,
It's not a dog.
it's not a dog park. It's just a park. Okay. You have something to say, Eileen?
Yeah, we can't hear most of what John is saying in the back there.
The microphone isn't working.
John, when you move the mic around, it can't hear you.
All right, thank you.
No, I'm not done. What is happening here with the landscape project in front?
It's been bidded, we've sent out some bids for people to.
But we haven't gotten the back yet, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
There is a copy of what we're thinking of using.
but we have to wait on.
Right, we have to wait till the bids, the contractors come back.
John, do you have any expectation of what that completion date of those contracts will be when you expect to get them back in for the next meeting?
We don't really have a time frame at this point. We're kind of at the mercy of the construction people.
And what about what's happening with our entrances? Are we going to be planning any more on our entrances? They look awful like we're not even in our sprinklers, are we? John?
I don't even think that's up for discussion at this point.
No,
We
we
haven't
haven't.
done anything with it at this
Well,
point.
I'm just asking because you got landscape written on here.
Yeah, we were talking more about the trees in Oaks Park and the ones that, and the plan that we have out front. May I ask something?
Sure.
Did you notice before, we agreed to pay this, did he have on there that we could not change that landscape unless he agreed with it? Did you see that on that schematic? Was that on there? I never saw it.
I never did it.
Wow.
I don't know.
I didn't notice it either. I don't think I would have voted to accept it.
I didn't notice.
No, I didn't either. Okay.
Gotta love it.
John?
That's direction for the contractors who are bidding on the job, not to make any changes to the scope of the job.
Oh, okay.
Not us.
Not us.
Okay.
It's like, Bob's planting comes in and goes, well, I can't get 10 of them, but I'll put 10 of these in instead. That would be.
Microphone, please.
Jen was saying that at the bottom of the schematic that you see out in the lobby, it states at the bottom that no changes can be made to his design. And I was upset by that because I didn't notice it on the copy that we saw when we first saw it. But Jen explained that that is for the people coming in with bids, that they can't change a plan out and say, we can't get that, but we can get this. Not for us. We can make changes if we need to.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor and seconded to accept 3 Seasons tree trimming. Can we vote? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Now we're going. Oops, now we're going to correspondence. What is all that noise? Yeah, I was.
Is there someone who,
Is Mr. Stuber here? And can you mute your phone, because we're hearing everything that's going on where you are. Thank you. Oh, goodness. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Stuber.
Yes, John Stuber, 8015 Los Alamos. We received letters for tree trimming and for grass. We received letters for tree trimming and grass, and at that time, we contracted with companies to work for both, and not to do the minimum, but to do a pretty major project. And we were gone for a month to Colorado for Christmas, and during that time, we received letters, I'm assuming we received letters, they were certified letters that we never did get, about fines. I got another letter about a fine as soon as we got back, but that was 2 days before the fine started. So at that time, we hurried around and called those companies we got bids from to start all of the work. And we did start the work within 4 or 5 days. The tree trimming fines were kept to a minimum or not put on there, but the grass fines stayed on there. The project was encompassing a complete removal of many trees, shrubs, bushes, everything throughout the yard. So the grass could not have been put in before the trees or until everything was done. So it was a pretty big project, costing upwards of $8,000 that we worked on for that. So we didn't try to do the minimum. We didn't try to just see the areas and trim a couple trees and say, okay, we done what you asked for. We did a very major project, which is finished. I have a picture here of a complete finished job, which includes a complete new lawn, $3,800 for the lawn, $4,800 for the tree work, a $13,000 roof, $1,800 paint job, all totaling $25,350 that we put into that house over a 45-day period. So we're still having a fine of like $2,500 on this, even though we started work on this right away. And so it just didn't seem fair that was the way things were carried out.
The fine is only $1,750.
1,750?
Yes.
Is that the grass part of it?
There's 250 in the shrubs, and the turf issues is 1,500.
Yeah, okay, it could be that the fine, I don't have the exact amount in front of me. I thought it was 22.
The fines for the tree shrubs was $50 a day from 111 through 115. That's the one that you came to the office and said that you were doing it, whatever, and that stopped right then. On the turf issues, we stopped it when we found out, which was on 2/9, is when you came to the office about the turf issues.
No, I didn't come to the office on the
Or spoke to someone on 2/9.
I know I did not. Maybe that's when I drove by and seen work being done or something, but all of the work was being started at the same time. And with the roof being done and everything being done, we couldn't put in the grass until it was, first of all, graded, all the roots taken out from the trees, and then because they didn't want to be driving on top of the grass with trucks for the roof and everything. So everything was put together and done at the same time, and the roof or painting wasn't something that was asked for. Like I said, we did a very major project on this house, and like I said, I got pictures. It looks like a brand new house and everything.
And I would not argue, whether the house now, I'm sure it is, since we stopped the fines when we did, that we didn't go further, but we had no notice in the office that you were working on it.
Yes, the initial notice was the whole project was being done, grass and trees. And it wasn't just trimming trees, it was a complete removal, $4,800 worth of removing trees and grading and stump grinding and a lot of work involved in it. So the grass couldn't be done at that time.
All right, but if you had come to the office or called the office and explained, this is what we're doing, we have this contractor, here's what's doing, this fine would have stopped a whole lot quicker.
That is exactly what I did in the letter that I sent, saying all the work that we're going to be done. The letter with pictures of the work presently being done and the work.
When was the letter sent?
As soon as I found out. And like I said, we were gone for a month, so we did not get any certified letters. Those letters were not given.
Your first letters would have been before December.
We were gone for just before the beginning of December and until the end of December. So any letters talking about fines, I only received after we got home. That's the first time I got a letter like that.
When was the first letter sent, Sue, do you know?
The hearing notice was sent December 14th, so it had to have been, at least, yeah, it had to be before at least a couple months before then.
There was anything about fines a couple months before that.
No, but there was a notice that you were out of compliance.
Oh, yes, and we were doing everything to get back into compliance, but
You never notified anybody until you found out there were fines. You might have had all the intentions in the world.
Right. But well, I guess the main thing I'm saying is the whole project was started at the same time. And we could have just seeded and say, hey, we put in $250 worth of seed, the grass is going to grow, everything's going to be good. But I wasn't trying to get away with anything. I was doing a complete project. So the complete project included getting everything completely out of there and grading the property. So, I guess I could have delayed things a little bit by doing that, but I thought that the fines were being delayed when I showed the work was being done. And I not only sent pictures, I sent videos.
Are you saying that on January 15th, that was when you notified the office that everything was being done, not just the trees?
That sounds right, yes.
Who would you have talked to?
That's the letter that I sent with pictures and video, or email.
Does anyone have that?
Okay, John.
Yeah, so just for clarification, the board's already made a ruling on this matter, and that's on the attachment that you have. That's as per a previous board decision. So the question on the floor here today is, do you uphold the original board decision, or do you differ from what was originally decided?
Could we please have quiet in the audience? Thank you.
I think my thought with this, when I had shown pictures, video of everything that we were doing, was that the project was being done, and that included the grass. We couldn't put the grass in while we were taking the trees out and grading it. It was something that had to be done in order. And all that being said, it was done amazingly quickly with the amount of problems getting people out to do things with COVID and so forth. So everything was done just like I said it was going to be done, and it's done. And it started as soon as I found out. The day I found out there was going to be a fine, I called people that we had previously contracted, and I said, look, we got to get out there right now because I'm going to get fined. So that's what we did. We got out there within 5 days.
But you didn't tell the office at that time.
I did in the letter or the email that had the videos and the pictures of the work being done. Now, I did not specify, I just was showing the big project was started and it was going to be completed without interruption, which it was.
All right, the board reviewed, we had a meeting in February. And the board decision at that time was that the daily fines issued for the tree shrub issues ended on January 15th, which is the $250. That's on this sheet. I think we all have it with the red on top. And then the daily fines issued for the tree shrubs was ended on January, okay, and the daily fines for the turf issues will continue as previously documented. However, if corrections are made and the property is brought into compliance prior to March 31st, those turf-related fines will be suspended. Well, we suspended them on February 9th. So by February 9th, it had already met what needed to be done.
No,
So,
it hadn't, no, it hadn't.
well, it,
Do you want me to summarize?
yes, please.
So if you're a homeowner with a violation that you're being fined for, if you come to us in the office and say, John, we've corrected that violation today, you can either show us pictures or we'll come by and we'll take a look. If the violation's been corrected, the fine stop on that day, right? Or if you have an invoice from a contractor, whatever, we're very cooperative, right? So we want to end the fines as soon as we can end the fines. So that happened with the tree and shrub work with this gentleman. The contract, I think we stopped the fines actually before it was completed, but the contractors were on site, the work was being done, so we stopped the fines, right? With the turf issues at the same time or shortly thereafter, the project was not underway yet. So there's still an existing violation. Staff will not stop the fining process because the board's made a ruling, the fining committee's made a ruling. So what we tell all homeowners in that situation, whether you have a violation that's going to be corrected or you want fines waived in some manner, it's got to be a rewritten request to the board. So this gentleman submitted a letter because the upcoming turf project was going to be completed. It was on the schedule with his contractor. So at that time, the board made a decision. Okay, we're in agreement with that. If from this date going forward, if you're telling us and we believe you that you're going to correct these issues, we will not fine you from this day going forward, but you are responsible for the fines up to this day.
Just to be clear, that is not what happened. I never sent any letters saying anything about putting grass in after the first part. Everything was done at one time, saying that we were doing the whole project, which was trees and grass as one project all encompassed together. I never sent a second letter. I thought we were done. I thought we were set. I didn't think there was a reason to send a second letter. I would have if I knew that. There wasn't a second letter. Nothing to clear with.
This reminds me of Chris with the roof. We didn't let things go when he said he thought he had it planned. He didn't drop his fine until after the roof was put on. So I'm thinking this is very similar in that, if it hasn't been done, we don't have that anticipation of it done until we see it.
What I'm saying is I could have easily just seeded it, because that was an option to seed. Okay, and it takes a while for grass to grow. I could say it's seeded. I'm not trying to get away with anything. I put in every blade of new grass. It's brand new lawn. I wasn't trying to get away with anything. I was just letting everybody know that yes, we are doing this huge project of which I was not notified that there were fines. So you sent out certified letters, you would have to find that I got those certified letters. I was not in this state when the certified letters came. Okay, so that's got to be a part of it, right?
No, because before that, you had letters saying you had a problem.
I addressed every letter that I received.
You received letters before December.
I've received letters over the years, and we trim trees and do grass and everything that we need to do. And along with that, I was also doing a major project.
But if we don't know, how are we supposed to? We're not minors.
Because I came in and I showed pictures and videos of what was going on. And like I said, it would be simple for me to just say I threw down some seed and then, hey, we're done, right? You gave your receipt that I did that. I didn't do that. I was doing everything properly and doing it. And it came out with spending, as I said, $25,350 has been spent on that property. I don't want to spend another $1,500 in fines. I don't think it's fair.
Go ahead, LeMay.
I was not here when the first part was gone over. It seems to me that there was a misunderstanding, because I think if he's starting the trees and you can't do the sod or work on the grass until those are done, and I certainly understand that his understanding is that we would have known that the grass would follow those trees. I feel the fines for the trees or the sod should stop when he notified us that the project was beginning and the trees were being trimmed. I think that's only fair. Somewhere along the line, there was a misunderstanding. And since he's already put out so much to come into what we asked him to do, I think there had to have been a misunderstanding, so.
You know, we send notices at the beginning. And I personally don't remember the February meeting, what was said when. But if at the February meeting, we did not have proof, we had proof that the trees and shrubs had been stopped.
If I thought something was necessary in February, I would have been there then, just like I am here now. I would have been there, but I thought everything was understood.
And we
with the
stopped
trees and
it
shrubs
after
together.
that February meeting.
I understand that, but like I said, the trees and the shrub were being done together, and I couldn't do one without the other. I couldn't do the grass and then come in there and do stump grinding. It just couldn't be done. It had to be all done together.
But I don't think that was ever explained to anyone, because we would have stopped it. You know, I mean, we would have stopped it. We have been known to stop fines at, just with the promise that it's going to be done.
As I said, I thought that's what I was doing. I didn't know that I had to do two separate things. Because it was an all-encompassing project. If I was to put the grass in and then come out with all the tree work that was being done, literally there wasn't a blade of grass left after the tree work was being done, between the tractors running over it, and stump grinding and everything being done.
We understand that.
So that's what I thought. I thought everybody understood.
But you didn't express that to us, is what I'm saying.
I thought I did when I showed the beginning of the project and the project that was going to be done. I did describe exactly what was going to be done in the project in the letter.
I think really we could go back and forth on this for an hour and it's not going to be resolved. I think that somewhere along the line, there was a misunderstanding. And, you know, I think the only way to end this is to make a motion. I would like to make a motion that the fines be suspended for the turf issues on the same date that the fines were suspended for the tree and shrubs, which would be, I believe, January 15th.
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any more discussion from the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do we have a copy of the information that was submitted, showing that the project was underway?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so that's not in dispute.
What was in dispute is what we saw at the February meeting versus what we saw,
I think what happened was at the time of the February meeting, that's when you reviewed Mr. Stuper's correspondence. So at the time, the board said, okay, here's his correspondence. We accept his explanation. We will suspend fines as of this date pending his corrections. He did follow through with what he said. He made those corrections, but there had been fines up to that date.
But that correspondence was the one and only correspondence that I did at the very beginning.
Was Mr. Stuper here at that time? Was he? No. So we didn't. So at that time, we did not have anything from him at all, other than letters and our understandings of those letters.
So he had called originally and he had pictures and we discussed and I went and looked at his property. And then in regards and the tree and shrub fines stopped based on our conversations. In regard to the turf issues, I asked him to submit that letter for board review. He did submit it. The board reviewed it at the February meeting. The turf work had not been completed yet, but at that time the board reviewed his letter and said, we accept this, fines will stop as of now.
The tree letter and the shrub letter are the same letter that was sent in the very beginning. There was never a second letter. You can look at the dates on it, look at the letter you guys sent.
all right, we have a motion. There's people behind you. Are you talking on this particular item, Dale?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, listen, because this is for you. Dale Thompson had cheated Drive. The only thing I'm really concerned about with this whole thing right now, and I know this is gonna shock everybody, is the fact that you're getting fined because of grass. It's turf grass, right? Well,
Yes.
talk to the water company, because I am telling you what they told me, and I've told you this before. We are in a drought right now. They don't want people putting down sod or even going and buying plants and stuff.
This was before the drought.
time ago, Dale.
This was back in, this is not January and February. It's not now.
Well,
No.
the last time that we were having a problem with grass was a heck of a long time ago. And the water company told me they overruled the HOA when it comes to, we've been in a drought for a hell of a long time.
Yes, I know this.
So people cannot keep their grass green. I would like to get a job for the county and make them a lot of money, because if I rode around to see how many times people are illegally watering that have these nice lawns, I could make the county a fortune, because it's like a $500 fine. Right now, our HOA cannot complain about people's grass or lawn or give us
We are
fines.
not going forward. We're not.
Well, then you need to find out what the dates were and check, because I would pretty much bet my money and on my life that
Oh, good.
we couldn't do it.
They're driving people right outside. Oh, Karen, this is the same house that you and I talked about.
Karen, remember.
What's that?
This is the same house that you and I talked about quite a long time ago?
No, about the Bert and Sally Anderson's home, I've been
No,
complaining. Oh.
This house.
Karen Ziola, I'm not sure where this gentleman lives, even though he's in my immediate neighborhood. I'm beyond shocked. Here's somebody trying to better the neighborhood, and I have been complaining about a home at the end of my street for over 5 flipping years, okay? And there's no grass. I took pictures of it and posted it on Facebook. To this date, I don't think the Andersons have gotten a fine. And here you are berating somebody who's trying to make our neighborhood better. I just do not get this. And number one, I don't know if he's a new purchaser, but do you know that our rules say that you have to keep the home in the condition that you get it maintained? And I'm telling you, these people are buying these homes and they look terrible. You don't want people maintaining them. So I hope in the new newbie group meetings that you're explaining to them that if they buy a home and it's all run down and the yard looks terrible, that they are expected to keep it up and or upgrade it, because our rules do not say that.
I don't know.
Okay, Eileen.
Real quick, there are people I know that are sodding right now. I see the trucks in my neighborhood, out there putting the sod down. I know that across the street from me, there's been a house there for more than 10 years with nothing but weeds. Their lawn's been brown forever. I imagine that that house probably has the maximum amount of fines on it, and people show up once a year and I don't know what they do. They take a bag and throw weeds all over it. But, I mean, that house is in awful condition, but this doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a matter of whether he's here asking that you let him go on the fines, not about whether he's putting his grass seed down or not, or his. So I don't know when they forgave the first set of fines and stopped the fines, or that's not real clear. So it's up to the board.
There's a motion on the floor. Can you vote on it?
Thanks, Ed, we know that. Okay. Let's take a vote. Could we clarify the motion, please?
Motion is to amend the turf daily fines to 111 through 115.21 at $50 per day.
Okay. Let's take a roll call vote. Thank you.
Susan Muniac,
No.
Ed Weiner,
Yes.
Brenda Owens,
Yes.
Lemay Nyford,
Yes.
Jennifer Smiley,
Yes.
Beverly Hasty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passed.
What exactly are we saying?
His fine for the turf, instead of stopping, what was it, February 9th, it will have stopped as of January 15th. So it will be less money than what it is
It'll
now.
be 250, just like the other is 250. Because they're both the same dates now.
Due to the length of this meeting again, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
He came up already, right? Do you want to do your correspondence, your letter, Karen?
I would just like to state that I think when the rules do not say what you want them to say, it might be a good idea to start a resident with a board member, a committee, and start finding out what the community would like put back into our documents. Thank you. Because, I mean, we've got homes in here with like 3 tiki bars, okay? So, I mean, if you can have 3 tiki bars on your lawn, I don't see why you should be bothering with things that seem so insignificant, okay?
Okay.
I mean, my flag was up almost 2 years, by the way.
Oh,
People lined up and we're
okay, this isn't, of course, open forum yet. Okay, we were just dealing with Karen because she was on the agenda.
So we can't comment?
No, because we don't have we're waiting for open forum.
Okay, all right, thank you. So do we have
Ed made a motion to adjourn.
who seconded it? Second. Okay, all in favor?
All right, aye.
Motion adjourned. I mean, meeting adjourned, excuse me. A comment, yes. Okay, I am actually asking for volunteers. This is not for Timber Oaks. I do volunteer work for the Volunteer Way. They are in need of volunteers, especially those who might be interested in doing some tutoring for adult students wanting to take the GED. If you are at all interested, please contact me and I will give you the right number to call. It's not I have much time as you would be available, not that. They have that need, and also for people who, if they do a food bank and there are people who register and they need some help in that also. That's my only comment, and thank you all for attending.
Anna Singer 14116. I just want to give you a little lesson in parliamentary procedure. When you had your motion that was a tie, you were correct, the motion failed. However, those that voted in favor of that motion can request that it be put on the next meeting's agenda.
Thank you,
Dale Thompson, Hitchita Drive. I know we're not supposed to actually talk to the board, or you don't have to answer me, so I'll just make a statement. I did receive a letter about the tire in my yard, and I removed it, and then I read all the paperwork, and it doesn't say anything in our paperwork that I could not take something and craftily turn it into something else. Things right now that are being made out of painted tires, and mine isn't even finished, it's there for a reason, are being done all over the place and charged a lot of money. The one I have in front of my house right now that I made myself, believe it or not, goes for $30 online. It may seem ridiculous to some people, but I had 3 different $30 flower pots from Home Depot there that all got broken. So I figured with the tires, people won't hit them when they turn in the driveway and break them. I think it's about time that the lady that goes around making the fines or whatever, or the people that are filling out the cars, I am studying it now, and I'm finding out that one of the things that really is not allowed is religious items. Well, I rode around, and if I told you how many angels and crosses and religious things are in people's yards, I don't like turning in people, especially not my neighbors. But if you're gonna keep harassing me for every little thing, then somebody out there doesn't like my big mouth. Somebody out there is going after me, and I'm getting tired of it. I've been very quiet about it, but I'm getting to the point now where, yeah, if I have to get an attorney, I will get an attorney, because I'm starting to feel like it's prejudiced against me. It says nothing in our thing about my yard. At 71 years old, I never expected to be trying to keep a house by myself. I only have 1 check coming in. I'm trying to keep my house. You're running other people out. And I'm not letting it happen to me unless it absolutely has to. And as far as the letter goes, I did remove the tires. Then I did research and found out, where does it say that I can't have it? Where does it say I can't recycle anything and make it some kind of a decoration for my yard? If you can show me that and show me that I'm actually doing something wrong, I will gladly remove them.
I do have one thing, when you send out a letter, can you not put on there where you're finding this penalty? Because, it has you reading through everything all over again, because I thought when I got the flag thing, I missed something. But then you said the thing about that, whatever, and it didn't say one thing about my problem. So, if you could put on there what the violation is, it would really help. They don't do it now. Yeah, email me that.
Melvin Jarrett, 8030 Casuarina. Is this the open forum? You're still in meeting?
Yes.
No, open forum.
Okay.
Open forum.
I have a question about the status of the computer club. And I have brought in two recent articles from the Timber Times. Says computer club meeting 7 p.m. in the auditorium on the 3rd Thursday of the month, postponed. It has similar, that was from the May issue. April issue said similarly. Also, the April minutes that are posted on the website said, I don't get now who made this comment, but it's on the minutes, that the computer club was not canceled. It's been suspended, I believe was the word that they used. I just like to know the status of the computer club when it says that other things can happen. Let me see here. Page, man.
We didn't cancel the postponement.
I think you, oh, Debbie, go ahead.
Bruce Hicks has not responded back yet to say if he wants to do it or not. It was never said that he couldn't. So it's still listed as postponed until they contact us to say he's going to start it again. He has not reached out to say he'd like to keep continuing.
Okay, well, email I had said that he would like to continue. Also, he said he's going to continue sending in the article.
And he has not.
He has not?
He has not.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
If you can find someone else, or if you can get a hold of Bruce and find out what's going on, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Mitch O'Barry, I live at the end of Footprint, and I would like to thank you boards for looking into some of these houses that are unruly and not taken very care of, and we're trying to do something for the community. When I moved here, it was pretty nice, but I've seen grass cut on yards and everything else. Well, I thank you guys for trying to make an attempt.
Comment about the pool. I noticed that when I come on Tuesday nights, sometimes when I'm leaving, I notice we have people in the hot tub that I do not think live here. And one of the reasons they bring a lot of times water bottles or I don't know what kind of beverage, and they're sitting around the hot tub with their beverage, and if you say anything like, oh, did you know we're supposed to keep them 4 feet from the pool? They're like, why don't you just turn me in? Most of the people that live here don't act the way these people do. They don't come here disheveled, let's say. I don't know what word to use for them, but they certainly don't seem like the people that live here. And it's been a couple of times that I've been through there. I don't know if we have to look at some kind of way that, and what they said to me last night is, oh, we're new. I said, well, the rules are over there. Really not supposed to have things within 4 feet of the hot. And one of the guys had a bottle actually in the hot tub. I mean, and it could be a little too frequent. I don't know how we, tell who lives here, who doesn't live here. There's been a lot of new people, you know.
I think it's very hard for us to decide who lives here and who doesn't without the wristbands. We may have to revisit that. I'm not sure, because on Tuesday nights, when there's so many people going in and out, it's too easy for someone to just walk in. And other times too.
I mean, there should be, maybe we gotta go back to the tax, I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen.
I had a